Welcome to Adventure CEO Leadership Insights, your ongoing conversation with entrepreneurial CEOs and modern day adventurers who are sharing their hard earned insights from their quest to continually expand opportunities for their families, their teams, and the communities they serve. I'm Jeffrey Wolf, your host. I'm glad you joined the conversation. You want to make sure you've got something to write with to capture the insights you're about to get from our upcoming guests. Our next guest is an award-winning entrepreneur and CEO. He has been given multiple awards, including the prestigious Ernst & Young's Entrepreneur of the Year, the National Veteran-Owned Business Association's Veteranpreneur of the Year. He is a former member of the U.S. Army's elite Special Forces teams, also known to us civilians as the A-Teams and the Green Berets. He is a frequent guest on the hit TV show Hotel Impossible. He is a highly sought-after keynote speaker, a best-selling author. Please welcome the founder of Broughton Hotels, Larry Broughton.
Larry, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah,
I'm excited to have you back.
Thanks.
We're live at Larry Broughton's headquarters for Broughton Hotels. And Larry, wanted to start with talking about why you're such a huge advocate for entrepreneurship.
Well, listen, it's funny you asked that question in today's political climate,
Yes.
right? It's very interesting that the Harvard study that says that, I forget the exact stats, but basically almost 40% of young people up to about the age of 26 have a favorable view of socialism.
It's frightening.
To me, that's frightening. As a capitalist, that's
Yes.
absolutely frightening, right? And what I tell people is, if that's the case, travel the world. Show me a country where it's really worked. I believe that entrepreneurship and capitalism, not I believe, it's just a fact. Entrepreneurship and capitalism has lifted more people out of poverty than any other social program that's out there. It gives people meaning. They can break the multi-generational chains of poverty that some people experience. It gives people a sense of worth, of helping each other, of serving other people. There is nothing else besides, I think, being in the military where you can build such amazing bridges to people and serve other people. I am if you can't tell, I'm a huge fan for entrepreneurship.
Well, because it's about seeing a need, fulfilling it, and then prospering on a fair exchange of value.
Well, of course, it's a fair trade. Nobody's putting a gun to my head
Right.
and said, you must give me this or you must take this, right? It's not happening. But it goes even beyond that. Successful entrepreneurs serve people. They serve their teams, they serve their communities, they serve their clients. That's where we find meaning in life, is through sacrifice and service.
Because, for example, one of the things that you do in terms of serving the community and through your companies is the peanut butter and jelly Fridays.
Yeah,
that you had done for a long time.
Yeah, well, we change it. I think we do them Wednesdays and we do it once a month. It really turns my stomach when I hear people badmouth business owners.
Right.
Most business owners that I know aren't just takers from the community.
Right.
They serve. This country gives more through charitable contributions that come from the wealthy and business owners than any other country around the world. It is just a fact. The numbers are out there. Google it. But still, there are some business owners, there are some quote-unquote leaders who do exploit their populations.
Right.
And I figure that we've just got an opportunity to serve the communities that we're in. And so once a month, we stop what we're doing here in the home office and at some of the hotels, and we create these sack lunches for at-risk youth that are here in Orange County. And it's a small little thing that we do. But, I think it just raises awareness for people. And it's a team building. It's an opportunity for us to get together to stop what we're doing. And then, by the way, I think you've been here and helped us on these before, right?
It was a phenomenal experience.
And we've had meetings where we've had potential clients or vendors in here, and it's that time, and we stop what we're doing. And either you're joining us,
Wow.
or, so it's a lot of fun. And you know what? And we do when we're doing these things, it's about 150 lunches that we do each time. So for under $200, we create 150 lunches for people that wouldn't have them otherwise. How easy is that for a business to do?
Yes.
You'd mentioned I was in Special Forces. I remember being in the first ever jumping out of an airplane, right? You have a jump master who's really the senior person on the plane, and their job is just to make sure that people get out of that plane safely. And sometimes people hesitate in the door that first time.
I did that on my first jump.
Well, there you go.
I got a
It's like,
general.
are you freaking serious? Look, I'm going to do this? And what you need is a firm and loving parent who's the jump master, who's going to put their boot in the butt and just get you out of that plane, because everything is hard until it gets easy. The
Yeah.
first time you do almost anything, it scares the hell out of you.
Yes.
The first time you ever got on a roller coaster, right? The first time you ever did, most things were scary. And then you realize it wasn't that bad. We build up so many things in our head about how bad things can be, and we're so afraid of failing and looking like a fool that we just sit on the sidelines oftentimes. And I think that's what happens with a lot of these people who could be running, could be launching, could be taking their businesses to the next level, but whatever it is, they're afraid of it.
Well, and can it also be the inner game?
Most
because,
of it's the
because
inner
that's
game.
something that you've probably experienced this. I have. It is very revealing of what's going on inside me, and sometimes that's not something that I was very happy looking at the mirror with. Can that also hold people back?
So, dude, most of it's the inner game,
Okay.
or lack of inner game,
Okay.
which is why, again, I go back to the veteran space. This is why a lot of these
Mhm.
vets get out and actually do really well in the business community. That doesn't mean you got to join the military to be a successful entrepreneur, but a lot of the successful entrepreneurs that I know how to take calculated risk. Some of these people are adrenaline junkies, and there's a reason you do this. You hear people say, if I can do that, I can do anything.
Yeah.
Well, when you keep raising the bar on these bucket list items in your life, you bring that back to the business community and say, if I just climbed that water tower yesterday, or I just went cage diving with sharks, or I just did the Camino de Santiago for 500 miles by foot, I can handle how I'm going to cover payroll next month.
Mhm.
So that's the inner game.
But it's like a couple days ago, we were at Willow Springs, and
Yeah,
it was raining.
yeah.
And we're watching these cars run at 140 miles an hour plus down the straightaway. And it
That's
looked like
scary.
they're pulling water skiers.
Yes.
And I'm sitting looking at it going, this is nuts. And we got talking with some of the drivers.
Yeah,
And it was, you touched on it, that loving parent,
yeah.
right? So that's having mentorship, coaching, training to say,
Yeah.
look, yeah, this is much more dangerous. We're aware of that, but here's how you deal with that.
Yeah.
You build up to this skill level, and then here's what you do at this level, because it's been a progression. It's not as frightening of a challenge. Pushes buttons, but not as frightening of a challenge as it would be.
Dude, that is such a great point, because I don't want people to confuse what I'm saying. Like, if I don't have the skills or I don't have the experience, I don't want people just walking out and jumping off the top of a building,
Right.
metaphorically, with their business.
Yeah.
There are a couple of things I've done in my life that have really hammered home for me the importance of having mentors and taking baby steps in their life, and that is Boy Scouts and martial arts.
Okay.
Why, Larry? Well, because Boy Scouts, you come in as a scout, and then you become a tenderfoot, and then you go up through the ranks until you become an Eagle Scout. And everything that you learned as an Eagle Scout was built on the foundation and steps you took along the way. To become a black belt, you don't just walk in to a dojo and get your black belt. You have to do the work to get your white belt. You have to do the work to get your yellow or gold belt. You got to do the work along the way. And once you become a black belt, that's when the real learning begins. But so many people, again, they don't do the hard work on the foundations of business, right? You and I were in a mastermind once together, and I can think of times where people, you and I were scratching our heads like, dude, this is like business 101, but they haven't done the work on the business 101, and so when it comes time for the advanced degree, they're not ready for it. So many people want the immediate success in life, but the entrepreneurial journey is a long and arduous one.
Well, and having done the foundational work, is it important to come back to that? I heard Dom Razzo, retired Navy SEAL, he said, I never want to be the guy that can't sweep the floor.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's
It's always the basics. Everything comes back to the basic blocking and tackling in life. And in the military, we say that slow is smooth and smooth is fast, right? And that's always going back to the basics, practicing those basics. And once you get those basics done, you repeat the basics on the draw over and over again, it becomes reflexive on it. But you still go back and practice the basics day in and day out.
John Wooden, and here's how you put your socks on and tie your shoes.
Exactly.
So that your feet aren't getting injured when you play basketball.
So isn't that the interesting thing? We've just brought up examples from the military, from professional athletics, and from the business arena, right? One of the things I say over and over again is We have to listen to people who are further down the path than we are. When we hear 2 or more high achievers say the same thing, we ought to listen up, right?
Yeah.
So why is it that we don't listen? Well, why is it? Some people do and some people don't, right? Some people are really good at following formulas and others are not. But I'm glad that you're saying this so that your viewers and your listeners get this, that we have to do the basics. You know, in the entrepreneurial arena, we have to know how to hire. We have to know how to coach. We have to know how to do our accounting. We have to know how to do basic marketing stuff and not just be dreaming of that big exit strategy without doing the basics of growing your business first.
Yes. And how are you doing on your basics? Do you touch that from time to time? Because you, in another interview series, you had mentioned that you take your entire team once a year back to your original plan.
Yeah, it's called a dynamic business plan for growth.
Yes.
We are approaching our 20th year in business, and we still have the original dynamic business plan for growth.
Wow. After 20 years.
Well, of course, because it's called dynamic, so it changes.
Okay.
Business plan for growth, which means we're always growing. So we go back and we review our vision and our mission statement to say, hey, is this really still what we're attempting to do here? We go back and look at our core values. Do these core values that were important last year and 10 years ago, are they still the same? Hopefully core values don't change, because that's what core values are, right? They're supposed to be those things that you don't compromise, that they remain the same. But do we still believe in this? And sometimes it gets tweaked, a word here or a word there. So yeah, every year we go back and visit that. We have what we call Leadership Summit. Okay. And so we get last year probably 60 of our top leaders into a room for 3.5 days. And
wow.
And
that's a big investment.
Yeah.
Both financially and time-wise.
Yeah.
To have that many people for 3.5 days.
Yeah. Yeah. So it does a couple of things out. When the top leadership from one of our hotels is away, what's that do to the other people at the hotel?
Now they've got to step up.
They got to step up. It gives them an opportunity to shine. The people that are away also need to make sure that there's succession plans in place. What if on that trip their plane goes down or whatever? They need to make sure that it's still running smoothly, right? Now a lot of this stuff happens anyway, because let's say a general manager goes on vacation or whatever. But yeah, so it is an investment when you bring that many people together. But if we're not investing in the human capital in our organization, what the hell are we investing in?
It's all about people.
It's all about people. I see this over and over again, Jeff. I may have said this to you in this last interview.
That's where I learned that from, actually, with Larry.
Well, actually, and I'm not
going
to take total credit for that, but I'll say this, that when I went to the Stanford Executive Program, one of the professors there was a Nobel laureate in economics, and he said, you know, we've been studying business, and business comes down to 4 challenges, 4 problems. If you can figure out what problem you're having in business, it's going to be one of these 4, then you can really figure out how to fix it, right?
Yeah.
Which is really important in businesses that you're either taking over that are struggling or just situational problems, but they're people, product, process, and profit problems. People, product, process, and profit. And he kind of left it at that. He said, okay, identify where it falls. Are you having a profit problem? Okay, go ahead and fix the profit problem. Are you having a product problem? Fix the product problem. But when I got into owning my own businesses and got into my own coaching arena and mentoring people, and I pull back the lens and I say, well, gosh, they've got a product problem, they got a process problem, they got a profit problem, but they all stem back to the people problem. So my thing in business is they're all people problems. We may just have the wrong person on the wrong seat on the bus, as Jim Collins, also a former Stanford professor, I would say. So I'm not the one who came up with it. I had the epiphany about that they're all people problems, but the people, product, process, or profit, people that are smarter than I am did that analysis. But I do think that it's true.
And it's something that you talk about a lot, though.
A lot.
So that was really, it helped me with a breakthrough in how I thought about that.
Well, I think it's important as leaders, Jeff, is that if we all recognize that they're people problems, listen, we don't get into business for mediocrity. We don't become leaders to be mediocre or to be mediocre. We oftentimes get in because we want to create legacy. We want to do great things. If you want to do great things, you've got to be a great person. And the same thing goes for our teams. And so if you recognize it's not just my job as the CEO to make money. That's one of them. But it's to create more leaders, to create great people. And I'd rather have an organization filled with great people with just a kind of mediocre B plan than an A plan with crappy people. Because that plan people will not get together. It will absolutely go off a cliff.
And it echoes General Patton's quote.
A good plan violently executed today is better than a perfect plan next week.
The emphasis being good. take the
good.
action now.
Exactly.
Something, make sure it's good and go now instead of
Absolutely. Yeah.
trying to continue. I'm a recovering engineer. I like to perfect it. It's like, analysis over action doesn't work so well. It's action over analysis. So you've built a very prosperous hotel company.
Trying.
In the hospitality.
Sure. Yeah.
And we wanted to ask a lot. There's different needs and growth.
Sure.
If you will, transition points.
Sure.
Wanted to ask about in mid growth, like so when you're in past that initial seven digits in revenue, maybe even 8 digits in revenue, and building infrastructure to really take it bigger with intention. Did that change how going through that phase? Does that require different thinking, or focus on a little bit different skills?
For me?
Versus
the CEO?
Versus just getting started versus when you're in the
Great question. I wish more. Listen, I do a lot of these interviews, and that question doesn't get asked nearly enough. Yes, as the CEO, as the primary leader of the organization, we have to change. When I launched this company almost 20 years ago, I was much more of a tactician.
Okay.
And I was in the weeds doing a lot more as the startup. I had my fingers in every decision that was being made. Now, where we are, we're considered a large organization, I guess, based on what the SBA says. And I'm thinking even as we go forward, because we've got some big things in front of us here, I am more of a strategic thinker, coach, mentor, cheerleader today than I ever was 15 years ago. It's vital that I'm speaking positivity into my team members, because if I've got which I do, an executive team here at our home office, executive teams at each of the properties, I need to make sure that the executive team here are also cheerleaders. They're basically not mini me's, but they know the way we think as an organization, and they know how to identify talent and bring out the best in people as well, not just me, right? Because I can't touch every person in the organization. I can't even touch every leader in our organization.
So it's clarity on the framework for the thinking. It seems like it's also transitioning into a role of now you're much more about developing other leaders rather than developing the frontline team. Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great way to put it. The first couple of hotels that I had when I launched this company, I was running team staff meetings at the hotels back then with room attendants and guest services hosts, because that's what it required, right? But now there's no way, but that's not the biggest priority for me, because I have other people who can do it. I've got operations teams, I've got CFOs, and it's so funny because I had right here at this table last week, I had some clients in here who are partners in 4 hotels. And I was talking about how in the past year, I've spent more time acting as a football coach with our team, because we've made some missteps. Listen, we are a pretty good organization, but like every business, we make mistakes. We miss opportunities. We develop a strategy that goes totally off the rails. You have turnover that's unexpected at the most inopportune times. We have that. And so that's what I was saying to the partners here is that, listen, I have to be a much more effective coach and mentor today than I was 5 years ago or 15 years ago as the CEO. So yes, my role has definitely changed. I have to think about the organization differently today than I did back then. So how do you keep up with that? I mean, for one thing, being aware of it is huge. Yes, okay, here's the skills. That was something in, back in 2004, I was at a Chamber of Commerce group.
Yeah.
And we're sitting at table rounds talking about what we needed to do for the following year. And everybody's talking tactics, and it came my turn. They go, okay, what's your biggest challenge? It's like, well, I being able to grow fast enough personally to keep up with what's going on around me, and be the guy I need to be. And the response was stunning. It just looked at me like I had 2 heads. I thought, where are they thinking? Where are they going with this?
Yeah, well, I think it's good. Self-awareness, number one. Having and believing that I've got the ability to change along the way, and making sure that I have mentors in my life that are further down the path than me to say, hey, this is what you need to do. Now, the good thing is I personally have got the smarts, and I can be a bit of a chameleon just based on my life history, that I can change, I can morph, I can become a better person. I am frankly really good on the human development side and seeing human potential in people, and on the strategy side. But not all CEOs can do this. This is why some organizations, as they grow, as they hit the $200 million mark or the $10 million mark, whatever it is, all of a sudden they either implode, stagnate, stall, or implode if they don't have a board of directors or board of advisors or mentors who say, all right, CEO, it's time for you to move into more of a chairman role or chairperson role or some other role so that we can bring in a CEO who has the goods, who can actually lead the organization. Right. That takes humility, though. To step out of the organization that you have founded, to take your hands off the operational direction of the organization is very difficult.
But it's mine. It's like my precious. It's just,
yeah.
I can see, but wow.
Yeah. And you look, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Yeah. You know, Steve Jobs left and had to come back to save it, right? Elon Musk left and had to come back to save Tesla. And it'll be interesting to see what happens with Tesla, right? So it happens all the time. Those are the big, obvious ones. But it happens over and over again where boards say, hey, or this is the CEO from their own awareness, says, I can't lead this organization any longer. It's past my skill set. And this organization, I don't think it will, but it could. It could get to the point where I am not the right person at the helm in the CEO role. And I am totally okay with that. Totally okay with it. I mean, I'll still be involved in the strategic direction of the organization.
Sure.
But I am not the smartest person in this organization. Thank goodness.
And that's been seems to be one of your strengths, is to be able to build a team, and at the same in team building, and at the same time to be willing to surround yourself with super high performers, which can be uncomfortable.
Yeah,
and,
well,
and
that comes
a lot of can you surround yourself with people that are way better at what they do than you are? I know that pushes my buttons. I struggle with that.
Yeah, but it takes humility. You have to build trust with people. But it goes back to my time on Special Forces A teams, right? When you have 12 Type A, Alpha, hard-charging, highly intelligent, these people are all IQs above 120 on an A team. If you were to put them around this table right now and we were to talk about business or politics, there would be fisticuffs, right? But because we all understood what our role was in the organization on the team, we all understood what the mission was, we all subscribed to the same vision, harmony oftentimes. Now, believe me, there are times when, you get into arguments or whatever, but highly productive. 12 guys on a Special Forces A team can go in, they're force multipliers, can go in and do extreme havoc in any country, right? Well, so I take that here. I don't want to be the smartest person in my organization. And so every department head that we have here is smarter in their area than I am, but none of them are as smart in my areas as I am, as far as strategy and human development and those kind of things, or just being able to see potential in projects and in team members. I know that I'm a good team builder, and so that's what I'm sticking to. I'm staying in my lane. I'm good at branding and seeing potential in projects. I'm going to stick in that lane. But then I'm just going to bring everybody together and make sure that we're all on the same page.
This isn't your first company.
No.
You've been through highs and lows.
Yeah.
Has that fed in? Was there key learning that came from that has made you more successful now in the role as CEO?
Yeah. I wish this weren't the case, but this is. We learn more from our tragedies and our failures than we do from our victories and our successes. That's part of life. With the caveat, if we take the time and actually reflect, we do what we call AARs, after action reviews. What did we do right? What did we do wrong? How can I improve the next time? And you have to do that with your personal life and in business, right? Those AARs. We're now at, what are we, pushing 2020, right? We're on the dawning of 2020. And there have been a couple of really significant recessions and depression since I launched this company 20 years ago, right? I've burned through a marriage. I've burned through friendships, I've realized, I'm not there are some areas I'm just not great at, right? And so for the last several years, I've tried to focus on that personal part of me so that I become a better person. This is why I say, if you want to do great things, you have to be a great person. I'm saying that for me, not just for everybody who's listening.
Yes.
I have to become a better version of me. How do I respond to the slings and arrows that come from the marketplace? One of the problems that I had early on, Jeff, is that I started believing my own press. He's a turnaround artist. He's the prince of the hospitality industry. He can do just about anything, right? But I was lying to my spouse. I was lying to team members, not outwardly. I was, not making the smartest financial decisions. And then when things come crashing down, publicly, it takes humility, man, to say, hey, I have no idea, Jeff, what I'm doing right now. I really need help. Are you willing to help me? There's something in us when, as leaders and high achievers, where most of us are very reticent about asking for help for some reason, or to admit that we don't know what we're doing.
Yeah, suddenly the phone weighs like 400 pounds.
Oh my
when you
gosh.
pick it up.
Yes.
Still, how do you do with that? You have a hard time reaching out for help? I still,
Dude,
it's on my top 5.
Yeah, so it was December 2001 when I had to do that, where I was just at the bottom. My wife had left with my few-month-old daughter, and we were in a recession, and I couldn't pay payroll. And the phone was just staring at me, and I couldn't pick the damn thing up. And so finally, it took her leaving for me to kind of say, all right, my best efforts got me here. It's time to start asking for help. And so I just started picking up the phone and just dialing for dollars. And by dollars, I don't just mean literal currency. I mean just help.
Right.
And I was really surprised that a lot of those people who I thought wouldn't even take my call said, some of them said, dude, I'm in the same position you are. I wish I could help, but go get them. You got this. Others said, hey, let me introduce you to this person. Maybe they can help. Other people said, hey, I'm willing to loan you a few $1,000 if that'll help. So I learned a lot with that. Because what I used to think is people aren't going to, they're going to kick me in the chops when I'm down. But I had a spiritual mentor at the time say, Larry, if somebody called you in their moment of weakness and brokenness and said, Larry, I just need a hand, man. Can you help me out? Would you kick him to the curb? Would you kick him in the chops? I said, well, of course not. He said, what makes you think that you're so much better than these other people that they're not going to do the same? They're going to help you. Of course they're going to help you. So I encourage people oftentimes, don't wait until you're absolutely at the edge of that cliff or sitting with that gun on the bed. You know what I'm talking about.
I do.
Or, ready to drive your car off the cliff. Don't wait until that moment. Ask for help as soon as you start seeing the warning signs, right? Because you can save a whole lot of pain and anguish by doing that. So that's, I guess, what I would respond to that, because of that, I've learned, and repeatedly, that's the kind of, this is why I've got the mindset now, is I don't want to be the smartest person in the room. Because that's a very isolating, lonely place. Which is why, though, that as CEOs and business owners, we have to do the things that you're encouraging people to do, I know. That is, surround yourself in a mastermind. Surround yourself with other CEOs. Yes. Because by building those relationships, you can no one knows what it's like to be at the top. Unless you are there, and I say top, I just mean at the top, we put it at the bottom. You know what I'm talking about, in that CEO position.
Yes.
You don't know unless you have been there, the burden that you carry day in and day out. And I know a lot of CEOs that didn't even realize it until they exited out of their company. They say, I had no idea the stress and pressure that I was carrying until it was gone.
It becomes normal.
It becomes normal. Of course it does, right? And so when you build a relationship with another CEO, and you can pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm having this problem, I'm feeling this way, they can say, yep, I'm there too. And haven't you ever had that in your life where you think that the burden that you're carrying, you're the only person who's carrying that burden and no one else will understand. But as soon as you find out that someone else has carried that burden before you, it's like, oh, I'm not in this by myself. Isolation is a killer. It is an absolute killer of businesses and of people. And so it takes humility, though. Humility takes courage.
And does that also help with a perspective, as CEO, to have the perspective of there are people that you're responsible for on your team and in the community you serve that are going through the same thing?
Yeah.
In terms of mindset and feeling that isolation.
Yeah, it's a humbling experience when you do what I call your sphere of influence. When you start counting the people in your organization that are counting on you, it's not just people that you're writing the paycheck to, but your vendors, for instance. If you're successful, then your vendors are going to be successful, right? Because they're providing product and services to you. If you close up shop, all of a sudden, those vendors aren't getting services or product, right? Which means they're probably not going to be paying whatever. You know, it's a long
Right.
tail
Yes.
on this thing, right?
So that was in manufacturing, we had, depending on whose stats you looked at, we'd say every manufacturing job supports 3 to 4 other jobs in the community.
That's right. Yeah. And so when you start
It's a
adding
huge
that,
network.
when you start adding that sphere of influence up, it becomes a little bit burdensome, you know, if you don't have the right mindset on this. And when I realized that I'm not the only person carrying this company, that I've got hundreds of other people that are doing the same thing, it's important that I know. I'm looking out the boardroom window here right now at somebody's office who's had a family member pass away recently. And so we came around her and supported her the best that we could. You know, we've had people who have had, you know, cancer and deaths of spouses and all those kind of things. And if I was one of those bosses that said, leave your personal life at the door, I own you from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, then it's not going to build any sense of loyalty, camaraderie, teamwork in the organization, right? When we go back to, this is a people business, and all businesses are people businesses, just like we can't expect, I can't expect her not to bring the grieving that she's having with this family member to work. If I have a work environment that's cutthroat, grinds people down, she's going to take that home to her life. It goes back and forth. This whole
that's powerful.
invisible wall that we think we have, that we're going to separate our personal life from our professional life, is just nonsense, right? If you have a bad day at the office, you bring it home, like it or not.
Yeah.
And so why not try to create, and I don't ever want to be, I almost got emotional there for a second, because I almost had that at one point. I don't want to be the reason someone goes through a divorce. I just ground them down so much, they hated their job so much, they're on the road so much, that it destroyed their family. I don't want that. Yeah. I don't think any of your viewers want that. I want to create harmony.
For people like that, or know people like that. I've
Yeah,
got a vice president of operations for a manufacturing company who's doing some work for. We were talking about a morale problem they're having.
Yeah.
We're trying to turn the company around.
Yeah.
And people are just don't have that energy that's needed to
Yeah.
make it happen. And he looks across his desk and says, they're not supposed to enjoy it. That's why it's called work. Like, oh my gosh. Would you want to work in that environment? I mean,
No.
and they needed people to be charging the hill with them.
Yeah.
And they just
well,
oh,
interestingly, wow. I believe in hard work, and I do think that work is work. However, there is work that people enjoy. When you are working in your strengths, you enjoy it a lot more. You're a lot more productive. The problem is when you're doing work that you don't like, that you're not good at, that sucks your lifeblood, that's what grinds people down. There are a lot of people in this organization, I've seen it in other organizations that we've coached and owned, that people will joyfully put their shoulder to that wheel if it's what they like doing and it's what they're good at. They love the challenge. They love the opportunity. They love going into battle if it's something that they're good at.
So it sounds like there's a good exhausted at the end of the day and a bad exhausted.
Of course
at the
there
end of the
is.
day.
Of course. There's one that's soul-sucking and one that is, you know, nourishing and nurturing.
Yeah.
Right? Haven't you ever gone to the gym and you just worked hard and you, like, I remember, I was sharing this with my son the other day. My former roommate in Special Forces, his name was Jeff Millett. And we used to, a lot of people hate doing leg days, right? And we would do legs so hard. And from the gym to where we lived was probably 100 yards. And we lived on the 3rd floor. And I remember there were times we worked so hard, we had to stop along the way to rest our legs.
Wow.
And I remember getting on the stairs, I had to sit on the stairs and backwards and lifting myself up with my arms because I couldn't step up the stairs. And I loved it. Yeah. The same thing in business, right? But there's other times where your soul, you have nothing left in the tank because you've been drained by other people. That sucks. That sucks.
Yes. Yes, it does. Wanted to ask, you mentioned having had a reputation earlier in your career for being a turnaround.
Yeah.
Whiz.
Yeah.
What's different from the CEO's perspective when you're in turnaround mode versus growing mode?
So what's the difference between being in a turnaround? Oh, yeah. Oftentimes, if you are in a turnaround situation, mistakes have already been made. And there's probably already a team that's there. And we know if you're a CEO or a business owner and you're not studying human psychology, I encourage you to do that. because most people always default to, this is the way we've always done it. And that's death
Yes.
in an organization,
Right.
right? So if
Right.
you're trying to go into an organization that you acquire, or you're a new CEO, you've been hired to turn around an organization, again, it goes back to the people thing. You've got to go in and actually build trust with people and get them turned on by the idea of change, right? Change without leadership leads to chaos and fear. Change with leadership leads to innovation, right?
Okay.
We have to step into the leadership gap on this kind of thing. And so when you go in, like I said, if you're the football coach and you say, hey, what we just did in the first half, we got destroyed. We can keep going out second half and do the same thing, or they're gonna eat our lunch, or we can try something new. We've got the goods. You wouldn't be on the team if you didn't have the goods, but the strategy that we've been deploying, the tactics we've been deploying aren't working. Are we all in this together? You know, let's try something new. I'm saying let's, not I, we, or you. It's we're in this together. This is why simple things like in our organizations, we don't call the people that, you know, collect the paychecks, we don't call them employees. We call them team members.
Okay.
Well, why? Because when you view yourself as a team member, you understand that, hey, I have as much responsibility for the success of this organization as that person over there and that person over there. We are in this together. I'm not an employee where, hey, it's payday, boss. You know, can I take my vacation today? That kind of thing, you know. But when you call them team members, they show up, they act like team members. And that's really important in a turnaround situation. So I would encourage people, if they're in a turnaround situation, go in, don't make any changes, unless it is life safety, don't make any changes for 30 days. Go in and just ask tons of questions. Wow. Oh yeah.
That would be hard in those circumstances too. There's a lot of pressure. Okay, start day one.
Exactly. Because you want to go in and I can do this, I can change it. But if you don't have your team working with you, got to remember, there's a legacy of doing it one way. Now, there are some small tweaks you can do here and there, but I'm encouraging you, give it 30 days to make the big changes. You know, again, if it's life safety or it's just a matter of picking up the phone and calling somebody to get them to pay, you know, because they're delinquent, because that's one of the things with turnaround situations. People aren't collecting their stupid bills.
There's usually a big AR tied to that.
Exactly,
Right?
exactly. And I see that over and over again. And so, yeah, you can coach somebody up and say, hey, here's how we collect. Here's how we're going to start trying to collect these things. Yes, do that kind of stuff. I'm talking about big strategic changes. Try to wait 30 days. Well, why? Because I want you to build relationships with people, build loyal or build trust with these people. I had somebody in an organization that I worked with years ago who would come in the first, I don't know, couple of months. I saw him doing this to a few different people. As he was leaving after a meeting, he'd say, hey, I forgot my, you know, wallet at home. Can I borrow $1 from you so I can tip the guy out front? And I kept seeing him do that over and over and over again. And he said, I'll pay you back tomorrow. This is a new person to the senior person to the organization. And sure as shit, that next day, the first thing they had their $1 back. Now, why is that, do you think? Small little thing. Just take a little gamble on me. I know you don't know me. It's the first time I met you, you know, but you're already loaning me $1 and I'm going to pay you back. That's a sneaky, very cool little thing, right? I think it's a great tip.
It has a big impact. It's a small amount of money, but it's okay. But it's still that thing of you loaned someone money and they gave it back right away. It's like, wow.
Exactly.
It's unfortunately rare.
Yeah, right. And so try to find ways to build trust in the organization during those first 30 days. And just let everybody know we're all in this together.
Yeah, write that one down for me and then email it back, will you? Holy
yeah, I'd love to hear how that works for people.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
It's a lot of times the small hinge that swings the big door.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, build trust though, I think is the key. Because oftentimes if you know this stuff when you're building a startup organization or you're in growth phase, hopefully you're putting you know the team members. You know what systems you've got in place. If you're in a turnaround situation, most likely you got a product problem or a systems problem or the wrong people on the wrong seat on the bus. You know, so you got to figure out really which of those 4 things really needs your attention first. So I do this thing called Flashpoints. I've got a book called Flashpoints for Achievers, and
you need to look this up. This is another writer down.
Yeah, so
Flashpoints are golden.
Yeah, so it's a book. It's on Amazon. Flashpoints for Achievers. It's a daily journal. But one of them that I sent out years ago said, If other people talk to us the way we often talk to ourselves, we'd slap them. Right?
At least.
Yes, at least,
Yes.
right. Maybe give them a shiv or something,
But
right?
what, and it's like, when's the last time you looked yourself in the mirror, in the eyes,
Yeah.
when getting ready in the, for your day in the morning? That's just something I've started to track.
Oh, is that
Because I caught
right?
myself, I was running a training session, and that came out
Yeah.
in a training session, and I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Because it dawned on me as I'm having this conversation with this group of like 80 people, and I'm going, wow, I'm not congruent with that.
Yeah, we've all got that negative
Yeah.
chatter. You're not alone, Jeff. It's like
But
we've all got
it's
messages.
helped become a good measure, though. It's like, am I doing that? And then what's going on in my head?
Yeah.
And can I? And now it's like, okay, here's the crap that's going on in my head when I make that eye contact, and I change it so that
Yeah.
I'm walking out to start my day with a different.
I love that you have that awareness. There's times when I talk about this when I'm giving keynote talks, and when I talk about this, I see people's eyes light up like, what? You mean I'm not the only one who says that? I'm not rich enough, I'm not white enough, I'm not black enough, I'm not educated enough.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not the only one who has this negative chatter. No, you're not.
Yeah.
Many of us have that chatter, and that just sucks your lifeblood. It's like energy vampire,
Yeah.
And so we have to replace that with positive mantras.
Well, and especially the more the larger the role in the executive seat, and the more burden that you're bearing, it's I can't reveal that. I'm not supposed to have that happen in my head, so
Yeah.
I can't let anyone else know that it is.
Yeah.
Because there's just, at the end of the day, it feels like there's something wrong with me, doesn't it?
Yeah. And there's generally not. It's just that,
I'm
we're
sorry, you're human.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
experiencing it with all the rest of us.
Yeah. Well, get therapy. That's what I would encourage a lot of people to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want to be respectful of your time,
Yeah.
because I appreciate you making time for us today. And I wanted to ask two questions about looking into the future. So
Okay.
how do you maintain forward vision and keep expanding that, or how do you peer over the horizon? I used to work building over the horizon radar. It's like, how do you
Yeah.
keep that up over time?
Yeah. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but we have to have people in our lives who see our own potential that we can't often see. Just like you see potential in people that are on your team, who's speaking that potential into your life, So I've got people in my life who say, gosh, Larry, you're ready to do this. Like we're about to deploy a very sizable fund to do a lot of acquisitions over the next few years. Like a lot. We'll very likely triple in size.
Yet another scary adventure.
In some ways, but I feel like I'm absolutely ready for it because I've got enough people who said, hey, here's what the journey is going to look like, and here's the steps that you need to take, right? So if I were just, if this was the size of the company, I accepted this is the size of the company, I'm just going to keep monitoring, these few clients that we've got, that's a pretty easy road to hoe. But for a long time, we've been looking out past the horizon and saying, hey, what could be? The more work that I do on myself to become a better version of myself, the better leader I'm going to be and the more agile that I can be as an organization. So I do that just by continuing talking to people who have bigger organizations than I have. Some of the people that I hang out with, I'm like the smallest business that's there. I've dropped out of masterminds when I've become the biggest business in there. Not like immediately, but oftentimes, because I'm a big believer, Jeff, in that what I want to do is I split my life in thirds, generally, when it comes to this kind of thing. I want a third of the people in my life to be people that I'm mentoring, like people that are in masterminds or clients or whatever, that I'm teaching. Then I want to have about a third of the professional people in my life that are the same, we're going arm in arm into battle, like we're about in the same position in our careers. And then I want a third of the people to be further down the path than I am. Those are the wise sages. Those are the people that I can tap into who say, hey, oh yeah, I've been there before. Or what? You guys are only going to do $200 million this year? You guys ought to be doing $500 million. And here's how we're going to help you get there. So that's how I see over the horizon, because sometimes I can't see it. And so they lift me up on their shoulders so I can get a better view of what's out there. So I can't do it by myself. Did I answer your question, or did I skip
No,
it?
that's and brings up so much more.
Yeah.
We'll have to one follow-up.
Okay.
If I may.
Sure.
So it sounds like, again, back to the theme of mentors and advisory board, which you're a huge advocate of, as part of that process.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've seen, I don't know, it's hundreds and hundreds of businesses that have hired me to come in and help them troubleshoot. And one of the common themes that I see is that the CEO is not in a they don't have mentors. They're not in a mastermind. They're carrying the burden of the organization on their shoulders and no one else. They're not even disclosing to their significant other or their spouse the challenges that they're facing. And yet you talk to the CEOs of Home Depot or any large organization, and a lot of these public companies require C-suite people to have mentors. They hire them.
Wow.
They understand it's that important.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
So if the CEO of Home Depot is saying that the number one, I forget the quote exactly, but basically, the number one indicator of success is whether you have a mentor or not. Nardini, I think was his name. Yeah,
yes.
I think we ought to listen up. Bob Nardini, is it Bob Nardini?
Nardini or Nardelli, he came from
something,
GE, but
yeah.
he had come up through the GE system.
Exactly.
And was a key executive there before.
So, yeah, we have to do this. We have to have mentors in our lives. And believe me, I wish that 25, 35 years ago, I could have hired, a $200,000 a year mentor. That would have really shallowed my learning curve dramatically, right? Well, I couldn't afford it. And so what I do, I hired the best that I could. And sometimes I went to free masterminds,
Yeah.
But just hire the best that you can until you can divorce them, have an amicable departure, and hire the next one. I have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, I stopped counting a few years, hundreds of thousands of dollars on mentors, professional development, education in my career so that I become a better version of myself. And when I go in and talk to a lot of these CEOs who are in these turnaround situations or their businesses or family, and I ask them, when's the last time you went to a conference? When's the last time you went to a seminar? When's the last time you went to an executive program at Harvard or Stanford or something like that? It's like deer in the headlights. They have no idea what I'm even talking about. CEOs have to be lifelong learners, and I've seen this where too many of them. This is one of the reasons why a lot of small businesses remain small businesses, and that's fine if that's what you want. If you're creating a lifestyle business and you just need to bring another $75,000, because frankly, a lot of businesses that's about what the CEO or the business owner is bringing home. If $100,000 or $200,000 is enough from your business, that's fine. But if you want to grow it, you have to be a lifelong learner. And you can't be like, hey, I'm the CEO, and so I don't have to learn anything else. I just need to come in and be the puppet master. You're wrong. You're wrong. You must dedicate yourself to lifelong learning. So yes, I am a mentor. I'm a coach because I believe in entrepreneurship so much, and I don't believe that if somebody else is in the entrepreneurial arena, it's taking something from me. I wish that I would have had coaches and mentors earlier on in my career. But I believe you have to have coaches and mentors who are willing to grab you by the lapels sometimes and say, listen to me. Will you just take frickin' action on this stuff? Because you and I have seen a lot of these coaches and mentors out there, and the key is for them, just keep making those payments. So I'm just going to buddy you up and make everything sugary sweet for you all the time. It's going to be all right.
It's going to be fine. Yeah, let's get another latte.
Exactly. It's all going to be better. I don't believe in that. I believe I want people to get to success as quickly as they can, if that's what they're looking for. If they're looking for success, right? You and I have had tough conversations over the years. I can't think of a coaching client that has reached success that have not had tough conversations. Someone has to be the voice of reality in our lives, because as CEOs, as business owners, as founders, as entrepreneurs, we tend to be dreamers. We tend to, we want it to be sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows when it's not.
Yep.
Reality is our friend. Someone has to be speaking reality into your life. And so if someone's not holding up the mirror to you and saying, Jeff, this is really, you got this thing in your teeth that if you would only like do this, people wouldn't look at you so strange. Yeah.
Sorry about that. I thought I lost.
Well, you know what I mean? Somebody's got to hold that mirror up, and that's what a mentor is supposed to do for you. They're supposed to hold up the mirror and then say, okay, and here's how we're going to change it.
And it seems just really not fair to expect staff to do it. It's putting them in an untenable situation.
No, you're paying them. No, I don't think it is. Unless you have like a partnership, like I've got I do have a business partner who also plays a key role as one of our C-suite people in the organization. So he's both a partner and a quote unquote employee, but you heard me talk about employees earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So unless you've got people like that in the organization, but you're right, I don't think it's fair to go to an employee and put them in that weird role.
Yeah.
No, you hire them. Because they're going to have the objectivity, a mentor, a paid coach, they're going to have the objectivity to tell you when you're high on something.
Yes. Well, and it's that shift in perspective too, to be from the outside of organization and operations, to be able to stand off on the side and look. I mean, do that sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you drive one direction on a road and you get a view, drive the other way. It's like, wow, where
Yeah,
did that come from?
exactly.
So
Yes.
that person from the outside can provide that perspective. One last question.
Yeah.
If we were to talk 20 years from now, if we're sitting here and we're 20 years in the future,
Yes.
when, see, right? Direct.
Words
These
have
people that are direct,
words have meaning.
when we're talking 20 years from now,
Yeah.
looking back across those 20 years,
Yeah.
what will have to have happened for you to be able to say, you know what, I completely exceeded my wildest dreams?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. Well, I've got pretty wild dreams. All right. So let's see here. You know, really connecting with my soulmate who's out there somewhere, I think. I do believe I'm at that point in my life where that's an important element of my success. I don't want to be known as being successful in business. I want to be known as, this other side of my life as well. That I was
Sharing the journey. That's so much
sharing
fun.
a journey, absolutely. And the same thing with my kids, to be have them be wildly successful. And I've used the word success a couple of times, and you know this, Jeff, and so I'll just share it for your tribe. I think that chasing success is hollow.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. It just leads to a life of emptiness, depression, disparity. I would rather people pursue a life of significance, playing a significant role in the lives of their community and their families, their workplace, their place of worship. When you do that, then success is the byproduct
Mm-hmm.
of significance. And so because of the way I think that way, it would have to be like global peace to exceed my wildest expectations. Because in business, I don't have the goal of world domination like I used to.
Okay.
I just don't. I'm looking for joy and happiness and harmony, and because I've got enough stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but I just want to at this point live a simple life of joy, harmony, and making a positive impact in the world by creating more entrepreneurs and leaders for the world. I go back to the same thing in Special Forces. We were force multipliers. When 12 guys on a Special Forces A team, you can't do it alone. You have to go out and the indigenous people, you got to make them strong warriors too. Well, that's my role now.
Okay.
I'm the wise sage in business now. I'm the gray-haired guy now. So if I could to exceed my wildest dreams, I'd have to know that I personally impacted more than 1 million people
Wow.
through entrepreneurship and leadership, and created businesses. And I think I'm doing, between the TV appearances and the public speaking and the books, I'm making a pretty significant impact now. But it'd be nice to know that, hey, yeah, that message saved my life. That's huge. I hear it all the
Yes.
time. So,
Yes.
but it comes from actually being real, being authentic, being transparent. And I think that is undervalued in the business arena. So I'd like to see more CEOs do the same thing.
Awesome. Thank you. And you mentioned your TV appearances, your books.
Yeah.
How can we keep in touch? I'm sure you want to. We just scratched the surface. There's a lot more to learn from Larry.
Probably
what are you working on? What's next?
what am I working on? I'd mentioned told you about the fund that we're about to launch, right? Working on a couple of TV show concepts. That's fun. That'll be interesting. Working on a new book called Alpha American that I'm very
Looking for that Alpha American, right? Another writer downer.
that I'm very excited about. That's going to piss some people off.
Well, your book Victory was a bestseller.
#1 bestseller and still selling like hotcakes. I'm really proud of that book because it's really kind of a blueprint for high achievers. So I'm happy about that. But Alpha American is going to be a different book. It's going to be less of a business book and more of a lifestyle book. It's going to be like a finger in the eye of weenies, betas,
Okay.
and that's why it's called Alpha American.
See, a lot of us are going to be squirming regardless of where we're coming from.
And I squirm.
Which is,
Hey, like I said,
good.
you've heard me say, I write for me as much for anybody else. So I've got all that kind of stuff. So where can they find me? You know, LarryBroughton.me. So .me is my website, and it's got links to everything else that I got going on out there. But LarryBroughton.me.
Best-selling author, incredible speaker. If you've got an event and you need a keynote speaker,
Thanks.
you're looking for someone that can mentor your board,
Yeah.
or at least can show you the path on how to get that done. LarryBroughton.me. Larry,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Thanks, buddy. Good to see you again. Thank you.
You've found an ongoing conversation with entrepreneurial CEOs and modern day adventurers who are just knocking it out of the park with what they're doing, and they're sharing their hard-earned insights with you to help you build your business. What's working? What did they find as pitfalls, things to avoid? How do adventurers reframe what they consider to be possible? Many of them are entrepreneurs. I'm Jeffrey Wolf, host of Adventure CEO Leadership Insights. I invite you to join that conversation.